Alright, I want to continue this Dhamma talks on Metta. Buddha said one day, bhikkhus, don't be afraid of doing wholesome things. Ma bhayita bhikkhave punyam. Punyam etang sukhassa adhivachanam, he said. Bhikkhus, don't be afraid of doing wholesome things. Punya means, sometimes we translate it into English as merits, sometimes wholesome thoughts, words and deeds. So popular word is merits. He said, don't be afraid of doing merits or meritorious deeds. Merits means, merit is a synonym or another name for happiness. That means merits and happiness are synonymous. And Buddha said, don't be afraid of doing that. And this is one of the meritorious deeds. Cultivating loving, friendly thought. Meritorious deeds. Because while cultivating these loving, meritorious thoughts, we are happy. We enjoy it. We become peaceful and happy at that very moment. We don't have to wait even for 1 second to reap the results. While we are developing it, cultivating it, that very instant, that very moment, we feel happy. So he said, therefore, with this state of mind, you speak. When we speak with the loving, friendly thought, we feel happy. You act with the loving, friendly thought, you will be happy. So whether it is loving, friendly thought or speech or word, at that instant, at that moment, when we engage in that particular thing, we are happy. And therefore the Buddha said, don't be afraid of doing that. By all means, at any times, at any cost, do that practice. He said, I remember, Buddha said himself, I remember practicing this loving, friendly thoughts for 7 years. 7 years. And as a result of that, I was reborn as Brahma for 7 eons. That is a pretty long time. 7 eons he was reborn as a Brahma. And became, many times, became king of deities, Sakra. And on earth, I lived many, many lives in peace and happiness. See, while he was practicing it, he was happy. After death, he was happy for many countless lives. I mean, that is pretty good assurance, isn't it? You don't have to be afraid of practicing that. Now, this loving, friendly thought can be cultivated in 2 levels. The other day I mentioned 3 levels. Today I am going to mention 2 other levels. One is as a subject of tranquility meditation, to make ourselves very peaceful, calm and happy. I don't think there could be anybody who will not become peaceful and calm and peaceful when one practices this. Then, that can be used as a basis for gaining absorption concentration, jhana. Because when mind is calm, peaceful, tranquil. Our agitation, excitement, anger, fear, all this fade away. That would help to overcome other hindrances like greed, hatred. Naturally, when we cultivate loving kindness, loving friendly thought, our hatred will fade away. Resentment will fade away. Not only up to at that moment, but for a long period of time. Because mind becomes differently conditioned. When we speak about with loving friendly thought about our friend, for instance, we have a friend. We love that friend very much. Even if that friend makes a mistake, we don't blow it up, and we don't make it out of proportion, and we don't slander him or her. Because of our deep, loving, friendly thought, we either don't say anything about that friend's weakness, mistake, or we just try to find out the other side of the story. Even if we heard something bad about our friend, if we are cultivating loving, friendly thought, instead of putting more fuel to the fire, we try to find out the other side of the story. Or we try to meet the friend and talk to the friend, ask the friend to verify it. Is it true? And then, when suppose a friend made a mistake, committed an offense, so the friend would be regretting. At that time, if I, as his friend, also take his adversary's side, what kind of friend am I? So I should go to the friend and talk to him, try to find out what happened, how it happened, and I try to console the friend. When we have loving, friendly thoughts, we don't allow negative thoughts to enter our mind with regard to our friend. We rather always try to find out a way to help our friend. So that is the kind of attitude Buddha asks us to cultivate with everybody. That is not very easy. Instead of talking all the ill or bad of others, if we learn to cultivate the wholesome, benevolent attitude towards them, with this particular wholesome thought, then when we try to meditate, at that time also our loving, friendly thought becomes very, very powerful and strong, because in our mind there is no adversary, there is no negative, evil thought, and therefore we gain concentration. And Buddha said, therefore, we develop our concentration, gain jhanas, absorption, concentration, and then using that we attain the stages of enlightenment. How? As I mentioned yesterday, this loving, friendly thoughts, loving friendliness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity, and all these are conditional. So we see them as they are abhisankatan, abhisanchetaitan, they are mentally generated, created, and therefore we see them impermanent. seeing their impermanence, their own impermanence, one gains the stages of enlightenment. And Buddha said, if one does not gain the highest stage of enlightenment, because of Dhamma Raga, Dhamma Chanda, Dhamma Raga, Dhamma Chanda. You know, the word Dhamma Raga and Chanda both are used to clinging, craving, greed, attachment. But here, the Buddha used the word Dhamma Raga for the desire to cultivate this wholesome, friendly, loving, friendly thought. We become more and more attached to that thought. The thought of loving, friendly thought, loving friendliness. Now, becoming attached to loving friendliness itself is a wholesome state of mind. Until, of course, until one attains full enlightenment, wholesome thoughts are very necessary, very important. So, Buddha said, if one does not attain full enlightenment, just because of this attachment to the Dhamma Raga, Dhamma Chanda, here Dhamma means this very practice of for the sublime states, that individual will be reborn just because of that attachment to the practice of four sublime states. That person will be reborn will become an anagami, never returner. That is the third stage of sainthood. And be born in one of those five pure abodes, and will never return to this world again, and there they attain full enlightenment. So you can see the practice of loving, friendly thoughts is not only temporary cure, temporary healing technique, but it helps to heal the psychic irritants, to overcome our deeply rooted other psychic irritants. And therefore Buddha said, never be afraid of cultivating them. Never be afraid of cultivating them. However, when one is fully engaged in cultivating that, what really can happen in addition to all this, that individual's attainment of enlightenment will be retarded, will be postponed, will be delayed. For instance, Venerable Ananda was one who is known for his cultivating loving, friendly thoughts. He was very, very much engaged in practicing that. When Buddha was going to pass away, among unenlightened individuals was Venerable Ananda, and putting his hand against a doorpost and putting his head on the hand, covering his head like this, he started crying. Buddha has not passed away, and yet the very thought that he was going to pass away, this so Venerable Ananda had even attained first stage of sainthood, stream entry, and he is the one who knew almost every sutra that Buddha taught. There is no lack of knowledge of Dhamma to console himself. He knew every bit about impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, selflessness, and impermanence of life, and all this he knew. And yet his love for the Buddha was so deep, he began to cry this is my life. The Buddha is my life. This Buddha is my courage, my inspiration, my source of power, my faith, my strength. I lived for him. I worked for him. And now he is going to pass away. I am nobody like that. My life seems to be like dark without light. So he was crying. Then Buddha said, Ananda, come here, come. Don't you remember all these years I told you that this life is impermanent? I know you physically you work with full of loving friendliness towards me. You are full of loving friendliness towards me when you are working physically. Verbally you work with loving friendliness. Mentally you work with loving friendliness towards me. I have no doubt about it. I know that. And that is why you feel so sad now. But don't you remember, I have told you everything is impermanent? Work out for your salvation, Ananda. That is the best you can do for you and for others. So, this is the advice Buddha gave to all the bhikkhus, not only Venerable Ananda. He said, bhikkhus, if you want, when you utilize, use, consume the requisites given by people, out of love for them, out of loving friendliness towards them, use your robes properly, meaningfully, and may try to live up to the meaning of wearing your robe. Be gentle, be kind, be generous, be human, be soft, be full of service, and be honest, sincere, practice your Dhamma. These things you got to do in order to bring more benefits for the people who gave you this robe, out of love for them, out of loving friendship, friendliness towards them. Use this robe for your own salvation, benefit, upliftment, development, cultivating your insight, your purity, your cleanliness, and your liberation, out of respect and love for the people who gave it to you. Use your seats, shelters, houses, whatever you are dwelling in, for the same purpose, out of respect for them. Because when you are full of loving friendship, friendliness towards them, you would do anything to increase their merits. And when you use them, you will increase your own merits. He said, use the food that people give to you with the same purpose, to make them gain more merits and gain merits for yourself out of love and compassion for them. Use medicine, utensils, with the same attitude. And he said, Yathapi bhamaro puppang vanna vantang ahetayang phaleti rasamadaya evangame munichare. Go to houses, villages. Just like a bee going to flowers and without hurting its color, fragrance and tenderness, the bee extracts nectar and pollen from the flower and pollinating the flower. So the bee does two things. He gets nectar, pollen. At the same time, he helps the flower to bear fruit, pollinate, by pollinating. But it does not hurt the flower, not the petals, not the color, not the fragrance. Buddha said similarly, when you associate with people, don't overload their work. Don't ask them too much from them. Don't make your life a burden to them. Telling people, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that, that would be a great nuisance to them, a burden to them. And that you should do it out of loving friendliness towards them, out of compassion. Because people work very hard. They have to support themselves and their families. And you are an additional burden. Make it as simple as possible. Live your life, Buddha said. Live your life as simple as possible, so that the supporters can support you easily. Easily supportable. In Loving Kindness Meditation Sutta, Karaniya Metta Sutta, we say Subharocha. Subharocha. Be easily supportable. Not only for our own simplicity, but also for the benefit and support for those who support us, monastics. If we make very extravagant, luxurious requests of people, on the one hand they will get disappointed and we lose their support. On the other hand, it would be very hard on them. So, in his sermons and advices to all of us, he said, out of compassion towards them, out of compassion towards ourselves, we must strive very hard to liberate our mind from all psychic irritants. See, asking us to liberate ourselves from psychic irritants is not only for our own benefits, but for the benefit of all who support us as monastics. When we practice loving friendliness, we learn to overcome our hatred. When we practice compassion, we learn to overcome our cruelty to other beings. Cruelty in thoughts, words and deeds. We can even be cruel to people by demanding too much. It is not a very kind thing to do. We may not intentionally, willingly do that, but inadvertently, indirectly, we may inflict certain amount of discomfort in their mind by demanding too much. In other words, that is a kind of cruelty. When we cultivate appreciative joy, we support those who support us, monastics, to live their life comfortably. And when we practice equanimity, we don't make their life more difficult when they are in difficulties. And therefore, when Buddha said, when we practice these four sublime states, we practice them not only for our own peace of mind, but even for the peace of mind of others. When I say this, I remember a very beautiful story of a monk who was practicing meditation and so forth, was taking his alms ball, going from house to house. He used to go to one particular house every day. One day, after visiting the house in the afternoon, he would take his balls and so forth, and then again visit the families, just to see their welfare and help them and so forth. One afternoon, he took his, after his meals and resting and meditation and so forth, he was dressing up, putting his robe and taking his upper robe and the ball and so forth, was ready to go to a village, to the village. Then he heard a conversation between a mother and daughter. Mother said to the daughter, "Now dear, your brother will come tomorrow for alms." She called this monk her son, out of respect, out of affection. And therefore she told the girl, he is her brother. "So your brother will come tomorrow to collect food. Make sure that you cook very delicious meal for him. Here is brown rice, here is ghee, here is honey, here is the spices, here is vegetable, here is such and such and such and such. You prepare very good meal for him." Then the daughter asked the mother, "Mommy, what are you going to do?" She said, "I am going to the woods, to the forest, to sit under a tree and meditate." Then she asked her, "Then how are you going to eat?" "Well, I have yesterday's leftover rice soup. I can eat that. That's enough for me." This monk heard this conversation, and he thought, his heart immediately melted. He began to think, "My goodness, how can I eat this meal? How can I go to this house tomorrow to get this meal? This lady asking her daughter to make the most delicious meal for me, and she is going to eat this yesterday's leftover rice soup." He said, "I'm not going to this house to get food tomorrow until I attain full enlightenment." So he put his arms ball back, robes back, and sat down, started meditating. And he meditated that whole afternoon, that whole night, and next morning he attained full enlightenment. Of course, he has been meditating for a long period of time, therefore it was not very difficult for him. So next morning, as he promised to himself, put on his robes, went to the village, went to that house, and this young woman had prepared the meal, and the monk went, she offered the food. And that day this young woman saw this monk's face was brilliantly shining, better than ever. So when the mother came in the evening, mother asked daughter, "Dear, did your brother come to get the food?" She said, "Yes, mommy, he came. He looked so beautiful today, so brilliantly shining." Then she said, "He must have attained enlightenment." Now dear, this is an example for us. we also must work hard, strive hard to attain full enlightenment. And mother and daughter worked very hard, and they also attained stages of enlightenment. Now what this monk did to them out of compassion, out of loving friendliness. So for this reason, Buddha asked, if you have any loving friendliness towards your supporters, this is what you have to do. When you use the requisites, use them for your own attainment of enlightenment. Now, this practice has many stories about how very benevolent lay people and monks practice this and gets a lot of benefit out of it. And that is why it has become so central to the Buddha's teaching. I like to tell you another story. This is I mentioned this story to people in other contexts, but this for this topic it is I think more relevant. There was a meeting of monks long ago in India, and there was an elderly monk called Upagutta. Dhammagutta, just forgot the name. Anyway, this elderly monk called upon a meeting of a group of monks to make a very special, very important decision. But one monk called Rohana, he also was a meditator and had attained stages of enlightenment, and he went into what is called Nirodha Samapatti. Nirodha Samapatti is the attainment of cessation of feeling and perception. Once you attain that, you don't feel anything, you don't perceive anything. You are very much like a dead person. While he was in that meditative state, the meeting was held, and he was absent. When he returned, when he came out of his meditation, he immediately remembered, today I had to attend a meeting of monks. So he immediately came for the meeting, and meeting was over. Then this elderly monk asked him, where have you been? Why didn't you come to the meeting? He said, I was in deep meditation. Okay, but you know that we are going to have a meeting. Now, you have to undergo a punishment. He said, okay, name the punishment. He said, from now on, you go to a certain house to collect alms food. That house was belongs to a man called Sonuttara, a very stingy Brahmin. You go to that house every day to collect food. This elderly monk knew a child is born in that house. He did not tell this Venerable Rohana about that. He simply asked him to go to that house to collect alms food. He went there. Then he went, the Sonuttara, the Brahmin, the owner of the house, as soon as he saw this monk, gave an order to the people in the house not to give him anything, not even to look at him, not a drop of water. But this Venerable Sonuttara, out of tremendous respect and loving friendliness towards his teacher, this elderly monk, he did not stop going there. He went the second day, third day, fourth day, every single day he went there. He returned empty-handed. Nothing he received from this, not even a word. Nobody even looked at him. He never gave up because his heart was so filled with this elderly monk, because although it was a punishment to him, his reverence, his respect for the elderly monk was so deep. His loving friendship is so deep that he never wanted to give up. So he went. For 7 years, just imagine, 7 years and 7 days. No, 7 years and 7 months he went there. At the end of the 7 years and 7 month period, when he was standing in front of the house, one newly employed housemaid of that house did not know this standby order. Seeing this monk, Venerable Rohana, she simply turned towards him and said, "We have nothing to give you, go away." He went away. When he was returning, Sonuttara Brahmin was returning on his horse back home. And seeing him in a very scornful, sarcastic tone, he asked him, "Did you get anything from my house?" He said, "Yes, sir. Thank you very much." This Venerable Rohana said. Then this Brahmin Sonuttara got very upset. He thought somebody has broken the rule, the order. So he went to the house, threw his saddle and threw his boots and tied the horse very quickly in the stable and ran into the house and shouted and called everybody and asked, "What did you give to that wretched bald-headed man? Who gave? What you gave?" Everybody said, "We gave him nothing." "Are you sure you didn't give anything?" Everybody said, "No, we did not give him anything." Then this Sonuttara Brahmin thought, this monk insulted him. In order to insult him, he said that he received something from the house. And he thought this monk lied to him. And he got more furious. And he was waiting. Next day he thought, let him come tomorrow. When he comes tomorrow, I will give him very strong scolding for lying to me. Next day he came. This man was waiting. As soon as he came in, he walked up to him and asked him, "What did you get from my house yesterday?" He said, "Sir, I came to your house 7 years and 7 days. Nobody even looked at me. Nobody said one word to me. Yesterday, very kind lady said to me, 'We have nothing to give you, go away.' That is plenty. That is what I received." That is plenty. So this man felt so sad, so sorry. he thought, my goodness, if we gave him something, how grateful he would be. Now just hearing these words, he took it as receiving something. So this man immediately changed his mind, immediately changed the order, standby order, asked people to give him food in his house. So every day he was invited inside the house to receive meals and eat. Now, when he was eating food like this in this house every day, there came this 7 months old boy. He started this trip to this house when the child was born. Now the boy is 7 months old. 7 months and few weeks old maybe. Came out and he wanted to follow the monk to the monastery. And Sonuttara, of course, did not want this child to go to the monastery. But this child protested, insisted that he should go to the monastery. So finally, he thought, well, he might not stay in the monastery even one day because he is a spoiled child in this luxurious house. If he goes to the monastery, he might stay only a few hours, perhaps one day. So next day we can go and bring him back. Next day they went. This child refused to return and stay in the monastery. And he wanted to learn what these monks recites. Monks were reciting sutras, dhamma, and so forth. The monk said, you cannot learn these things without becoming a monk. Child agreed. They ordained him. As soon as he was ordained, this monk's punishment was ended. That was the punishment. His punishment was to bring this child to the monastery and ordain him. Now this child, when he was ordained, was given a name Nagasena. And then there came a king. I think the rest of the story you know. Nagasena and Milinda. In Greece there was a king who was a disputant, going from place to place, debating with people and defeating them. Finally he met this monk. Now he is an educated, young, enlightened monk, Nagasena. King Milinda came and had a debate with him. And debate ended up in his being a Buddhist. Now that debate is published, that is in Pali, debate is published in English also, translation, called Milinda Panya, the questions of King Milinda. Now this, I wanted to mention this story because it is a very lovely story. This monk's loving, friendly attitude towards his teacher made him go through all these difficulties for 7 years and 7 months and a couple of weeks. End result was a very pleasing, happy, beneficial result for everybody. Knowing this, there are every single instant in the Buddha's life, he mentioned the benefit of loving, friendly attitude towards people as well as towards their monastic communities. And therefore, one thing, even after the attainment of enlightenment, but the Buddha did one thing every single day, is that he attained what is called Maha Karuna Samapatti. Maha Karuna Samapatti. Maha Karuna Samapatti is the attainment of great compassion. Not any other, we don't know any other arahants or disciples of the Buddha who had attained that attainment, Maha Karuna Samapatti. In his daily schedule, from 4 to 5 in the morning, this is what he did. For 1 solid hour, he attained to this great attainment of the world, to see whom he should help that particular day. He was seeking people to help. Buddha is known as physician or surgeon. Bisakka Sallakatta. Bisakka is physician, Sallakatta is surgeon. So as a surgeon or as a physician, he was looking for patients every morning. And whenever he saw somebody needing his help, he would go to him or her to help that person's relief from pain and suffering. So, with full compassion he attained enlightenment, and with full compassion he continued to work. And with full compassion he went out to help people. So, with this attitude, with this state of mind, he advised all his disciples, four categories of disciples: monks, nuns, men, laymen and laywomen, to work out their salvation with this attitude in their mind towards all living beings, having this compassionate, loving, friendly thoughts. And therefore, its effect, its strength, its ability is wonderful. It never diminishes. Loving, friendly attitude does not diminish in our heart and mind as long as we maintain it with mindfulness. The moment we become unmindful, our loving friendliness can turn into greed, attachment, clinging, craving. That is its near enemy. Yesterday, I mentioned these four are the conditional practices. We have to guard ourselves against their enemies. Loving, friendliness has the enemy of greed, clinging, craving, attachment. Compassion has its nearest enemy, the cruelty, thought of cruelty. Appreciative joy has its nearest enemy as jealousy. Equanimity has its nearest enemy as foolishness, as ignorance, or as what you call indifference, indifferent attitude. Now, when we develop this with mindfulness, we balance it. Of course, even the mindfulness, if the proper equanimity is developed, even the mindfulness becomes pure and clean. But the moment we lose mindfulness, then instead of cultivating equanimity, which is even more powerful than mindfulness, instead of cultivating equanimity, we may cultivate indifference, sort of very neutral, very negative state of mind towards very important situations. And therefore, when we cultivate this, we have to remember these conditions and to keep them always in balance with the practice of mindfulness. I think this will be enough for today's talk, and we will continue it tomorrow. You may stand up and stretch and then have your meditation.